Fascinated with this concept of high resolution. Especially, I'm doing technology every day. Like I can almost imagine that Tijen is keep like double clicking me as a screen to kind of see through all the different aspects using her way of like different dimension and inquiry and listening. I think that's one that's really powerful. The other aspect I do want to mention is the beauty of the relational field and partnership.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this special episode of Coaching with Mastery and Elegance with Tijen Genco. And I'm your host, and I am delighted to have my colleague and student, Philip Chan, with us. Welcome, Philip.
Thank you, Tijen. Thank you for having me in this special episode. I'm always honored to be on this anything special. So
And you are very special. Thank you so much being part of this. And we're talking about this as being a special episode because we are going to unpack a very special coaching session that I had with Philip. And we're also going to relate to that to my most recently published book, Comprehensive Coaching Taxonomy. And here you will find generative and regenerative pathways into high resolution coaching. So today we are going to share with you snippets from that coaching conversation, and we're going to unpack that with my dear colleague, Philip. So Philip, so delighted to have you here. How would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
it's a beautiful, big question to start with. I mean, first of all, I'm also a coach. I'm a master certified coach with ICF, and I'm a coach educator. I'm actually teaching and supervising and mentoring coaches for the last actually 10 years already. And the other identity I have is I'm also an HR leader. I am currently the HR leader for a global tech company right now, based in Taiwan. And I also often call myself like a lifelong student as well. So I've been constantly learning and experiencing different way of living and get to know more about different aspects of myself. So that's basically a nutshell of who I am.
That was a beautiful intro and also didn't include all of the learnings and books and methodologies and of course.
I mean, if that's important, of course. In actually a lot of different parts of my learning, and my learning follows several important inquiry. After actually my first coaching training, I'm actually an engineer by background, but right after school, I don't feel I'm passionate about engineering anymore. I'm more passionate about human being. That's why I started an HR career. And after my first corporate, which is a pretty structured and process oriented and very, step by step company, I joined Google, which is a very innovative and everybody is different kind of company. So I was very lost. And I started exploring how can I get to know people with such unique background differences. That's where I found coaching. After that, I still have big questions like, you know, what does coaching, what is that for? Where do you want to bring people to? So I followed that and start exploring adult development, vertical development, what is the consciousness kind of evolution? That's one path. The other inquiry is like, where are those coaching techniques and tools really from? I realized if I don't know where that from, I couldn't really hold that, other than just techniques. So I started exploring like neuroscience and different psychological kind of inquiry like Gestalt, cognitive behavioral therapy, narrative, etc. And my third inquiry is, now that I know the tools, I know the frameworks, then how about myself? How do I also cultivate my own being So that's where I start practicing a lot of somatic, including like theater, improv, and even like somatic experiencing and all that body work to ensure that I have the great, how do I call that, container to really hold myself and my client in this relational field. So I have all these different practice, and I've been actually looking for something that can actually contain and include and integrate all that. That's where I connect to Tijen. In this whole session, I realized there is a way to connect all that multidimensional human being in a beautiful conversation. So that's all
Mm,
kind of brought us back to coaching.
beautiful. Thank you for that addition, and it makes even more meaningful what we're going to unpack today. Our session took place as part of Masterclass, where we had 5 other people in the room with us. And it started at the superficial level, some kind of a challenge seemed to be around negotiation, and turned into multiple other exploration that impacted who you are as a being. So what would you like to share about that as we get into it?
It's really deeply connecting to my values and my identity, I thought. Especially, I have both Western and Eastern influences. I'm based in Taiwan. I'm a Taiwanese in this whole Asian kind of culture where my values are pretty defined by this whole collective upbringing. And the other aspect is I've been like a 20-year corporate citizen that I follow this whole corporate structure to really define who I am and what is my value is actually pretty new to me. I trust, if I do good work, I will get recognition. I think that's been actually, that's my belief system. So I that's why I brought this topic to teach, and I thought like, oh, I really don't know how to either define or embody my value.
Yeah, because I also have a background that I can relate to from Eastern values versus the Western, right? In the East, often that the value is established as the product of the system. What are you contributing to the system? Versus in the West, the value is how are you individually being successful? It's a very different thing, and people often get stuck in between two belief structures and systems, and how do you bridge them. So we're going to see how we were able to do that actually in this discussion. And what I like to do in this case, that as we start to unpack, you could see that as an assessor, right? I often look at how the coach is mechanistically responding to what the client presents. And what I see, unfortunately, is the formulaic responses not necessarily relating to the client. Or we talked about the Western mindset. What I also see as an assessor, as a mentor, that the client presents this beautiful, intricate way of explaining themselves, and the coach asks them to translate that into the mental realm or an emotional realm, not necessarily can relate in the native language of wherever it's being presented. So as we get into this, there was a symbology where Philip was explaining himself. Would you like to add anything else before I play the clip?
Yeah, I do want to say that I can even call myself as an expert in problem solving. I'm so good at analyzing a problem and I know all that. But a lot of time the issue or the trick is not in the transactional level, right? It's not about like what's the next step that I can do about it. It's oftentimes deeper and multi-layered. So what I really enjoyed in the session is Tijen was able to really connect to me in all my different dimensions. And that really helped me drop deeper into my experience and also create this amazing awareness. It's not just one awareness, it's actually awareness after awareness. So after like each move that you will notice that I really had the shift every moment, however, Tijen is listening and presenting back to me.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, as you listen then and or watch us, pay attention to the nuances that the client is presenting, how me as the coach responding to that. Sometimes the coach can say one thing, can address this multiple dimensionality of the client. Yeah, let's play that and then we can actually unpack it afterwards. So.
I think it's recognize the change of my needs. Or, I mean, the change of my needs can be according to what I see and what I experience and all those that actually I changed. Then here's another pattern that I see in you is that not necessarily standing aside throughout the experiences to see how you changed, what happened to you, how do you relate and adjust and regulate. This seems to be another place. What do you think? Yes, I was just all in it, and to a point I was like, oh, almost like the water is like here already, and I was literally overwhelmed, and I need to say something, otherwise I just couldn't be with it. So then if the water is up here, I could feel the tears coming up for your relationship to the other. Where is the water for your relationship to the inner? Inner, you mean inner self? I think right now I actually feel quite firm and clear. I mean, at this moment, I feel it's maybe just here. It's a very comfortable place, or like, comfortable is not the right word, but I think this is the right place. That it's not like too easy. I feel like I speak for my truth. It takes effort, but it's not to a point that I couldn't manage. Yeah. Let me ask in this way. I think your response was in relationship to the other person and how do you feel. But in general, if you were to turn the lens inside and look at how do you relate to you, where do you think that your water levels are at? It's really here. I mean, I still can breathe, but I can barely breathe. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the sad part. Yeah. And I realize I am being undervalued even by myself. Mm-hmm. Is it even or just you? I think it's just me. I guess I was not, like, I was ignoring that for years. Yeah. Do you need a hug? I, I'm okay. I mean, I don't. I think that I just recognize that made me feel I can make a difference. Mm. Yeah, I mean, if I'm responsible, I can change. Okay. Now I can see that something is brewing. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So where is the brewing part inside of you and where is the sad part inside of you? The sad part is actually here. I can even still feel that. And it's getting lighter and lighter. Mm. And the brewing part is here. Something around my belly And the sad part is like here. It's around my eyes and face and this area.
Yes. And what is happening to the heart?
The heart is in the middle. The heart is closer to, I think the heart is like quite shaking. It's not stable at the moment.
Okay.
You know, actually that translate into sometimes I feel I probably should just let go. Sometimes I feel like, oh, that doesn't work for me. I should just, stand firm and push through this negotiation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there is the should relationships to the self.
Yes. I almost feel that, oh, how about the student? If I just won't go, maybe there's sense of responsibility and all that.
Mm-hmm. But no responsibility for you.
Yes. I mean, no.
Okay. What would you like to share now after looking at that clip?
I still got like goosebump. I mean, every time I watch this, even just this clip. I mean, if I believe the audience has been following, you can see that first, I realized how complex I was. The way I express myself. There is
Mhm.
like a cognitive pattern, there is somatic, there is emotion, there's different symbol that's showing up, even this kind of little subtle word. And Tijen captured everything in every moment. That was the first, I would say, like, it's truly a gift because I was held in a very gentle and sharp way to really help me see all that. That's one. The other thing is I just share that I can be so analytical as a problem solver. But somehow Tijon was able to connect to me in the moment and in my channel where I was experiencing that in my body. She was right there with me, exploring that somatic, so that I didn't get into any debate with her about like, no, I didn't feel this. I was actually thinking about that. So I just feel like it's masterful. Like it really helped me drop deeper. It really helped me see more. It really helped me feel that I'm so safe in a container where I can explore that deep truth in me.
Mhm. Beautifully said. Thank you. So, this is what I was actually highlighting in my book. It's not the exhaustive list, but there are 16 different inquiry types and 16 different reflection types that I saw as an assessor was helpful in the coaching conversations. But the most of the times they are used in a way that relates to clients' one dimension. And if we look at the water symbology that Philip was bringing forward, it touches to somatic aspect. There is a visceral experience, water level arriving right around the cheek area, right? But then there is also energetic aspect of that. It means energy build up all the way here, but it can't come to the eyes. It can come to outside. Maybe it's not coming through the vocal cords. I'm not sure yet. We haven't explored that. But if we look at what is producing that response, if I asked Philip that what does that mean for you, then he would have gotten into his intellectual faculties and probably getting into the debate with me without a resolution. So that this is why I say that it needs to, whatever the client native language is, high resolution coaching, as I say it, needs to carry that level of human forward interaction, not necessarily formulaic response. There is also two other aspects in my book that I want to highlight. One is the inquiry, right? Inquiry actually brings forward a direct light. So it highlights under the daylight what is happening, which is good. It's bright, you can understand and qualify. But then there is the reflective light, right? It's through the crystals, there is the softening. So in one thing the coach says, it can address and it needs to be understood what is relevant. For example, what I said to the client, if the water levels are here when you're relating to the outside, that also is a reflection. Where is the water level when you relate to you? Now, then, the client needs to take this and look inside to look at. So, there are complexities in that relationship. And the main strategy that I was looking to reveal for both of us was that what was it in the underlying foundational blueprint, as I call it, in the cognitive structure, resulting to this response in the outer world, the Phillips in the field, as it was, he was relating to the outer world. And that resulted in the transcendental, as Philip was explaining, going down in a new levels of awareness. What else might you add to that, if anything, Philip?
I think I deeply resonate with this concept of high resolution. Especially, I'm doing technology every day. Like I can almost imagine that Tijen is keep like double clicking me as a screen to kind of see through all the different aspects using her way of like different dimension and inquiry and listening. I think that's one that's really powerful. The other aspect I do want to mention is the beauty of the relational field and partnership.
Yeah.
One, I really truly feel held in this safe container. That's one. The other in this partnership is coach is an active partner, offering observation or reflection, not just as an observer or mirror. The presence becomes an important element in that. And she is presenting that in such a neutral and caring way so that I could also see that together with her in front of me, not feeling like I am challenged, attacked, or being judged in any way. So that's how I can see why I could actually drop deeper in every moment of those offerings.
Yeah, beautiful, right? And this is where I was kind of showing the crystal with the reflective light, right? Because often what happens, we get stuck in this light where it is highlighting. And if we keep looking around that, we're going to find the same kind of solutions. But here, when the coach relates at the high resolution level, coach presents multiple lighting options for client to choose from an undifferentiated point of view. And that's where Philip is sharing as the safety, because I didn't have a mission to get Philip anywhere. My mission was to stay present to his experience.
I really feel like Tijen was not going for what is wrong. Tijen is going for what is there. I am presenting. So starting this together and unpacking me. Uh,
Yes.
that was just an amazing experience.
Beautifully said. So let's, should we go to the next clip
Let's
then?
do it. Yeah.
Yes, let's do that. It's a shorter one. And here, what you're going to see actually before I shared it is more about, again, there is a symbology here, which gets into the larger field, cultural container, an archetypal relationship. And we can unpack that little later, how that actually forms Philip's identity and their self expression in
I
the
think it's
world.
recognize the change of
Okay.
the rescuer. Yeah. Rescuer. And it seems like then your rescuer
is its graduation point.
Yes.
Wants no longer to rescue things and find value through rescuing, but rather having an equally nourishing, nurturing partnership.
Yes. I know yes, because my body is shaking. This is this is probably the right signal that my body's like, ooh.
Yeah. Then if you employ your inner rescuer in rescuing you and your own value, what kind of operation would that be?
It might be like, open your arm. Yeah, I think it would be, I can imagine that he would remind me to be in the presence of that new version of rescuer, and my my entire being and even my tone of voice and the way I even the way I start the meeting will be very different. How do you embody it? How do you choose it?
Okay. So, what would you like to share about that clip, Philip?
I mean, first of all, there's because we only show this 1 minute clip, and the whole conversation actually took, I guess, like less than 30 minutes, and there are so many different moments are connecting to one another, and that's why I was kind of smiling because I can notice like this gesture was actually show up in another part, and even the choosing is showing up in the other part. And so I can really connect to it. And I want to say that first, nothing get missed. In this type of coaching by Tijen, everything was almost like, you know, she caught everything and she offered in the right moment. That's one thing that I want to say. The other thing I want to say is nothing, it's how do I put it? It's like no part or no um part of me is wrong. Like I almost feel like every part are trying to support me, but when that's in a graduation point, it can also be rebranded in a way that's more supportive and integrated. So that's the other thing that I really feel held. Like the rescuer doesn't need to go away, but it can actually play a different role to be more supportive of my new way of being. That's the other thing that I also really enjoy and appreciate.
Beautifully said. Yes, in this approach, not necessarily one of the things that I definitely infuse in my coaching that we recycle and support the parts that makes the human as a whole into more harmonic and more elevated way of self-expression, right? It seemed to me as the coaching session was progressing that there were some level of upbringing that didn't make Philip okay to show up his shining light unless he was in a specific social role to shine. And that's why then he assumed the relationship with the rescuer so that he could be a shining star through a particular social role. And in order for us to do that, I was using specific coaching taxonomies from the book: symbolic reflection and inquiry, future identity reflection and inquiry, visioning, future identity, embodiment inquiry. How do you embody it? Before we can embody, we cannot act, right? That's where the transactional coaching falls Sure. So those are the some specific dimensionality we were discussing in that the larger container of the identity gets into the larger collective, the archetype, the rescuer, and then it gets into how do I now become the new me, and so on. So there, those were part of that our discussion. Anything else you wanted to add, Philip?
Yes. I mean, through all my learnings, there are so many different ways, different coaching school or psychological approach handle those self-critics or, limiting beliefs, even like the way we name it, almost feel they are wrong.
Mm.
But the way Tijen approach it here is first so respectful of this culture identity and believe that, in my past life, it's been supportive. It helped me to get to where I am. Even the idea about graduation is turned into a new relationship, turned into a new way of living. It doesn't mean that we need to kill it. And oftentimes in other approach, the idea is it's wrong, we kill it, we hide it, and we invite some other helpful part comes out. But I really appreciate this way of, connecting and bring and integrating everything in this harmonic being.
Yes, thank you for that. Because what I find in my experience as a person and my self reflections, but also coach, educator, and mentor, that when we make some part of ourselves wrong, then that creates alienation and disharmony within the system because human beings are not one single unit. We have like 300 some millions of cells and we are a cooperation, and it eventually creates the disharmonies and self distancing, and that actually removes us from self sovereignty, which was part of this, right? Your self agency has returned. In order to do that, we needed to bring these parts into better and more matured, obviously, relationships that maybe you couldn't carry when you were 20 years old, right?
Yeah, it's just so if I just really break it down into different, parts, I realize like you really recognize it and you hold this belief of, okay, it's not wrong. Want to go for integration and this harmonic being. And then you offer a question for me to bring up this sovereignty and self-agency to see what else is possible in this new identity or new way of, new version of rescuer. So I just feel like this is whole just 1 minute and it can
Yeah.
be deep and beautiful and profound.
Yes, beautifully said. Thank you. So then, would you like to add anything from your background as the coach, the master coach, the mentor, educator, HR person that develops leaders, to this approach, how it can be used?
I'm smiling because I just had a conversation today with one of my leaders in the company. And I was actually giving him feedback about the way his anxiety show up with his team. He realized, oh, the impact's different from his intent. And we actually really unpack and talk through it. And I don't want to talk about how I approach it, but I want to talk about his feedback after I use some of this approach. He said, oh, I thought this conversation would be serious and challenging. I would receive a lot of constructive feedback and list of things I need to do to follow up, but I didn't. I really feel you see me, you're being supportive, and I can see how this anxiety support me, but I can use that in a different way. I guess
Mhm.
that's the impact. And nowadays, like, we all learn this great feedback technique, but it's often frame it as I tell you. But how do we also make sure like people feel seen in their way of being? And I thought this is actually a beautiful opportunity for us,
Mm.
in the company. Another point I want to mention is AI. In the company, even in the HR field, we talk about like, can we use AI for career coaching? Can we use AI to replace training? I mean, part of it, yes. If we follow a framework, a checklist, competency, yes, because there is mechanics that can be followed. But this beautiful relational feel, this safety, this deep identity, somatic connection cannot be replaced. And this trust is what allowed us to go deeper.
Mhm.
And also, it even further strengthened the relationship. If I said to the leader and say, hey, let's go to AI, AI will tell you how to solve your anxiety. I think he will get tons of, solutions and answers. But I think it doesn't build a partnership. It doesn't help
Yes.
me see him. It doesn't really help also him to deepen his awareness so that he have better commitment to really change his way of being and leading. The
Beautifully
other thing I
said.
want to say is also as an educator and assessor and mentor, I've been looking for something that is so human and really values true connection. Even before my MCC, I look for so many mentors and programs, just try to help me understand what MCC really mean. What are the competencies? How can I really get to, check box and pass my recording? And it's really after experiencing Tijen's coaching, I feel I am finally become a human being. I'm no longer just a checklist to be completed. And this way is really, I feel liberating for
Mm.
myself as an educator and for my students because they can truly see human before the checklist of competency.
Yes, beautifully said. Thank you, Philip. It actually breaks my heart as an assessor, right? As an ICF assessor for all three levels, even at the MCC level, I'm looking how the coach is relating to the client. There is no equal partnership, right? That there is not necessarily responding client sharing like your symbology, beautiful thing, and coaches over here, coaches over there, coaches over, they're not mashing. Because what I see globally as an assessor, I have access to the global schools through the candidate submissions. The coaching is thought as a response to the competencies, not to the client. And this is why I decided to call human forward solution coaching, because that also feel like culturally contaminated a little bit with competency forward coaching. So in the high resolution, we brought forward into details, into light for both coach and the client to partner in to find what is relevant at that moment to consider. It isn't also about keep doing stuff. It is about deciding an emergence. This is why that I use that language. We need to emerge into who we are so that the new level of relating comes into life. Yeah. There was also a point, we're not going to play the clip on that, but as a mentor, I often get questions about how to share, what to share in a session. There was a moment in that conversation, you're not going to get to see it, but I was explaining when Philip says, I want to be different in the future. And I said, do you want to or are you choosing? And then I explained the distinction between choosing, which is embodiment, and within the sovereignty and agency, wanting is something stays as if it is not happening in the future. And then we actually discussed in the rest of the session in that way. So, what would you like to share about that, Philip?
Um, I thought first that was actually a learning point for me in that session. And when Tijen was sharing that point, I received that first kind of in my cognitive. And I thought, oh, that makes sense. But I think that'll just stay here. I really decided to try. I was choosing to try to just say it and see how that feels. And I did feel different. And then I offered back to Tijen and said that felt different. And that actually made me feel this or that. I forgot, but I think that was my experience. So, I mean, in this whole idea of coach share some point, I think it's also about the intention and presence. Tijen was offering that not from like, hey, you are wrong, I am right, you need to follow. It's from like, for me, it's a reminder and also like an offer to say like, why don't you try this and see what's the difference? And once my cognitive receive it, I try and I feel different. And that's how we actually continue. And I actually also evolve because of that.
Yeah, thank you. And so it's okay to briefly actually explain the client what it is with indifference, right? When I presented the idea, I didn't energetically present it in a way, this is the way. This is that. What would you like to do with that? So then that in that space of possibilities, then the client can utilize their agencies to choose. So I want to briefly also share what in the book that just in this unpacking discussion, so you could see the clips that you have seen just in the water level. The coach's intentionality were around the signature move, revealing inner architecture beneath the client's stated value. And we utilize the access points, access language, as I say in my teachings and in the book, somatic, symbolic, energetic consequences towards the held belief. And these are categorized in my book as the somatic, energetic, symbolic, and foundational blueprints. And the one can use them in the forms of an inquiry or forms of a reflection or both. You've been hearing about their impact on the client. It resulted eventually a redefining what the value was from the new maturity levels and reforming their identity structures. Anything else you wanted to add about that summary, Philip?
Oh, I think I want to bring back to this whole idea of human front because I think Tijen always talk about do our own work and also when the client is in front of you, like focus on the client, not the competency. I think those I really remember, and I feel that's so important to bring here, especially when I'm looking forward to receiving my book. And but I want to remind myself that I don't use that as another checklist. I want to still hold the human front and really care about this relational field and the human being in front of me. And I think the other beautiful aspect of this is a lot of schools or my teachers talk about their sense, their intuition, and their experience, but they never get to really deconstruct how for me so that I really couldn't learn. And Tijen from like a super masterful kind of, Six Sigma or like process engineering background, she was able to deconstruct her approach of relating so that I could actually learn. But I still want to keep in mind of this whole idea of human front so that I don't miss um, the aim, but just focusing on the tools and techniques. So I just want to say that, hey, it's helpful way to understand and learn and deconstruct before we reconstruct. But I think the point is also the human being still.
Yes, thank you so much. And I did my best, very best, to make sure whatever that I put it in this book is not another technique, but an architecture of human relationship. And I hope that that's being understood and used that way. And if you're interested, you can find it in Amazon and Apple. That's available at this time. If you're interested in other informations about relational mastery, when listening, when responding, when even understanding the self, that you can find them on the Genco Coaching website. And I want to thank you, Philip, for being here and having this wonderful dialogue with me. Before we close, anything else you wish to share with our audience?
I mean, I think we we actually discussed this in several different occasions, but I truly want to share that this is what brought me to coaching, and this is what brought me to HR. It's about human being.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's no human being, then AI can do all the work.
Yeah.
And by truly connecting to one another in this way and relating to this multidimensional being, it is a beautiful experience. So I highly recommend whoever is watching this episode to try. I mean, try to receive this way of listening and coaching. Try to use this with your clients. I think you will feel from both, either giving or receiving, and this way of relating is something really beautiful.
Thank you, Philip. And it makes me think that I sometimes use this metaphor with my clients that as a human beings, we are very complex systems. And I feel like the way our trainings simplify so much that we only learn to push one button in front of us, even though we have this complex, like a space shuttle dashboard. And I hope that I actually highlight what else is in the dashboard so that they're more meaningful, supportive, helpful, and generative and regenerative relationships to the self and others can be possible. Thank you for being here, Philip. And we will leave the links with the show notes, and we look forward to meeting with you again.
Thank you, Tijen. Thank you, everyone.